Fairies today are the stuff of children's stories, little magical people with wings, often shining with light. Typically pretty and female, like Tinkerbell and Peter Pan, they usually use their magic to do small things and are mostly friendly to humans. But history and folklore tell a different tale. When belief in fairies was common, most people didn't like to mention them by name and so referred to them by other names. The little people or the hidden people. Many explanations have been given for a belief in fairies. Some say that they are like ghosts, spirits of the dead, or were fallen angels, neither bad enough for hell nor good enough for heaven. Originating in English folklore, the earliest mentions of fairies are in the writings of Gervase of Tilbury, a 12th-century English scholar and canon lawyer. During his many travels to different kingdoms and provinces, Gervase compiled a compendium of hundreds of stories about the unexplained marvels of the natural world. He wrote about enchanted places with animals that had human characteristics, and spirits that were both good and evil, like fairies. There was a time when people genuinely feared fairies. Much of the folklore of fairies revolves around protection from their malice. Back in a time when the world was a much more mysterious place, people feared offending fairies who could cast evil spells or curses on a whim. In Ireland in particular, such was the fear of upsetting the fairies, that instead of referring to them by name, they were euphemistically called the little people, the gentry, or the neighbors. Fairy paths were avoided and digging in fairy hills forbidden. Some homes even had corners removed for fear of blocking the fairy path. Cottages were sometimes built with the back door directly aligned with the front, both being left open at night whenever it was deemed necessary to let the fairies pass through. In traditional stories and legends, fairies didn't have wings. Flying varieties grew in popularity much later. Most of us can't see fairies. They live in a parallel universe called the realm of the Fae. According to legend, fairies went into hiding to avoid us because, well, we invaded their lands, so what else could they do? As we modernized the world with electricity, built roads and cities, and cut down trees, the fairies were forced to go underground and hide in caves, burrows, underwater fortresses, and finally into the spirit world. Shakespeare knew all too well that the best time to see fairies is Midsummer's Eve. This is when the invisible veil that separates us from the fairies is thin enough to allow people to see and interact with them. You might even be lucky enough to watch them dancing. But be patient, you could be waiting hours just for one glimpse. So why are we still fascinated with fairies in our modern age? Could it be we cling to the fairy stories our parents read to us before bed? Or could it be that fairies are real and they steal away our imaginations to a magical place, one that we rather enjoy? A land of adventure, of mystique, of enchantment. A land where we struggle to overcome evil, yet prevail. And that could be their greatest appeal, for fairy stories usually have a happy ending.